Well, as Storm Bert lashes the UK, and as I'm sitting here, I can hear the wind howling, and I'm going to have to probably go out and pick the bins up, which are probably all over the front of the house. But what better way to take your mind off all of this wild and woolly stuff is to catch up with the usually wild and woolly Don Topley, who is in the Caribbean, in my favourite place, Barbados. I'm not jealous, Don.
Good evening, Darren. Listen, just to warm the cockles of your heart, I've got a little rum punch. We've enjoyed some wonderful rums all over the Caribbean, St. Lucia, but we're back in Barbados. We're here for a little bit of a holiday. We have had some cracking guests, friends, come over to watch England versus the West Indies. It's just been great. And as you know, there's everything to love. The monkeys out in the morning in the garden. We're only 50 meters or so from the beach, the Caribbean Sea. We're quite close to Mullins, the Seashed, the whole town. The West Coast is everything you could ever think of and demand from the Caribbean. It's beautiful.
It really is. I know it like the back of my hand. Now, as we all know in cricket, there's always someone who likes to moan, isn't there? There's all any subject you name cricket related, there'll be someone that will moan about it. With this tour, there have been more than a few saying, "What are we doing? You know, we've just finished in Pakistan. We've got New Zealand coming up. Why are we wedging in this tour of West Indies? We were there not that long ago." But just to be clear, people have got short memories, haven't they? The West Indies did us a hell of a favour in
Cool,
lockdown.
didn't they? Yeah, so we're repaying them back. It's something that the old ECB, I think it would have been Graves and indeed, I'm trying to think who
Mr.
the
Smith.
CEO. They orchestrated this by keeping the lights on. You may recall Chris Silverwood went to Australia, then West Indies and Pakistan helped us out. So this is a bit of repayment. It's very important. I suppose, if we be honest, it's the third time in 11 months that England have toured the West Indies. They were here for an ODI and T20 series last December. Then they were here in the World Cup, which we eventually got knocked out by India in the semi-final. And then here we are again in this November, where we played I think it was 3 ODIs and 5 T20s. There was an okay crowd, but the West Indies probably would expect more. But I tend to think in the UK, not everybody can afford 3 tours to the West Indies in 11 months. They might have done one. It could have been last December or the World Cup or now, but not everybody can afford, especially in the current environment, to keep coming back to the West Indies.
Yeah, and especially maybe squeezing in a bit of South Africa and India and all around the UK as well. Only certain people can do that.
Yes. Can I just say you've been sorely missed out on the West Coast. All the
Yeah.
restaurants that you visit are missing you, honestly.
Just tell them not to worry, that their time will come. So, in terms of the cricket, it was a sort of a new look white ball side that was going there after the events that you mentioned, particularly the World Cup. I mean, this time, or just pretty much a year ago, or just over a year ago, England were world champions at T20, world champions at 50 over. It's kind of gone a bit awry, and almost the opposite of what we're seeing in the county game is that more emphasis has been put on the red ball England side than the white ball.
Definitely.
Yeah, um, you know,
Well, for me, the West Indies last December, West Indies won, I think, the ODI and the T20, and they lost them this time. But the West Indies probably didn't play as well. They were missing a couple of players, but so were England. But if we quickly look at the West Indies, I thought their power play cricket, being bowling or batting, I thought they were quite poor at times. They perpetually lost wickets in the power play when batting. England won probably more tosses than the West Indies did. And you have to say, because of the time of the TV, so they were played at 4 o'clock in the afternoon here. So the first innings would be played in the light, when batting on a fresh wicket was a little tricky. But when the opposition batted under lights later in the evening, the ball came on nicely with the dew. And whoever won the toss, whoever bowled, ended up batting later and winning. So basically, we had 8 games of cricket, of which 7 were completed, and the final T20 was abandoned. Yeah. But in the other 7 completed games, whoever won the toss won the game. And that was statistically how it worked out. The West Indies struggled in the power play, losing wickets. England were good. I'll tell you where the one major difference was. England's bowlers were a little more penetrating. They were proper opening bowlers that would bowl properly in the power play. And I think we were significantly better than the West Indies. So well done to them. Personal things that people got up to. Well, Butler came back for his first knock since going missing after the World Cup with his calf injury. He got back to form quite quickly. Okay, he got a first ball duck in the first game, but he won the game with an 80-odd in the second game. Phil Salt looked good. Saqib Mahmood, the bowler from Lancashire, I've been on tour with him, and he has struggled. He's had some horrific times on tour with England, but let me tell you, he bowled beautifully. He had confidence, and he probably had his best tour and his best days in an England jersey. So well bowled to him. If I could add, Saqib Mahmood, Jofra Archer, and Jacob Bethel didn't come and arrive with the team in the West Indies, or in particular Barbados. They arrived very early doors, probably close to 2 weeks in advance, and they trained, the 3 of them, at Franklin Stevenson Cricket Club Academy in the middle of the island in St Thomas's. Yeah. And they reaped the rewards for doing so. They came out here and had proper practice, proper nets, proper bowling. And do you know what? They were the boys who starred, actually. Jofra Archer bowled nicely in his, not his comeback, but in his calculated rehabilitation bowling management. He bowled beautifully, he bowled quite hostile. And then Jacob Bethel, a lad from the shores who went to Harrison College here and then came across on a scholarship to England, a white Bayesian. Let me tell you, he's a cracking cricketer, and he's done himself no harm. My word, what an athletic fielder. The 2 additions, Jacob Bethel and Jamie Overton, made England's fielding look really good, because I'm not going to suggest we've got 1 or 2 donkeys or slow, unathletic fielders, but what I will say is Bethel and Overton added to England's fielding, and they look good. So well done to those 2. Jamie Overton did well when he played, very unselfishly, good fielder, as I said, and he's on a returning journey, not bowling every day, but every second game he was allowed to bowl. So well done to him. England looked good, and they were fair winners over the series. So I think they can be reasonably pleased going back to England, having won both series.
And a word about Reece Topley. Picked up an injury, which he was clearly frustrated about, and threw a few bits of furniture around on his way back to the pavilion.
Yeah. Listen, just quietly, and I know, we won't say anything about this because he's my son, but he has the temper of his mother.
Oh, God.
Not level-headed, calm, considerate, polite like me. He's got his mother's temper. But listen, everybody would have been sympathetic to him, because they played on in the rain. Okay, they played on in the rain, and unfortunately, he then bowled a ball and his foot slipped, and there was a lot of rain. The umpires were trying. It wasn't his body letting him down, it was a freak accident. His foot slid, and unfortunately, hyperextended his knee, irritated his hamstring. And listen, he was basically, they couldn't do scans here. So it was better that he go home and have scans in England, which he did. Showed a couple of things, but hopefully he's back playing now in the Abu Dhabi T10s. Bit of a shame, but that gave another bowler a chance. As I say, it was nothing to do with the fact that his body letting him down. It was purely a bit of an accident. Maybe there was a question posed to the umpires, should we have been still standing out there?
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Well, it sounds like it's not as bad as feared, so we should see him back in action pretty soon. And it was a fairly quick fire tour, wasn't it? I mean, I'm always pining for the long, proper tours of the old days when you'd go to these countries and there'd be a mixture of test matches and shorter form cricket and intertwined with playing some local sides, much in the same way when sides come to England, they play the counties in between test matches. But I guess the demands of a modern day game, it's just not the case. But after the back of this, it sounds like you're pretty happy with what you've seen and the progress that England are making.
Yeah, I think we have to be honest and suggest they weren't tested too hard.
Right.
I think I was a bit disappointed in parts of the West Indies fielding, some of their bowling. They're bowling with some of the lads. I mean, they played this lad, Terence Hines. He made his debut at the age of 32.
Oh, right.
Didn't see too much excited me there. They like to open the bowling with Dre Russ at times. I think age is catching up with him.
Yeah, I was going to say, how old is he now?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you, but not young. And I don't think he's an opening bowler. I actually think, and I said this, I did a lot of commentary out here for the inter-Caribbean island stations. So from Guyana, Jamaica, Barbados, Antigua, Bermuda, right the way around
to rave reviews, I hear as well.
Well, it was lovely. It really was lovely. And I think they really get it if you're a cricketer. And like you, I am an utter badger, the modern word. I perhaps embarrass Reece at times because I'm such a badger. And that comes across perhaps with my commentary. And I think they quite enjoy people who are passionate. They really do. And radio out here, as a few people say, I've got the face for radio.
Well, I don't know about that. The cameras pick you up quite often whenever you're attending these games. It's always you get a quick shot of Mr. Topley in his pink shirt, sometimes awake, sometimes not.
Yeah, well, it's always nice to meet other dads, and I know many of them. And it was nice to be in the company of another dad, which was Jacob Bethel's father, Graham, and Gazelle, his mum, who white West Indians, and they are very cool people, and they enjoy their living in Barbados. And Graham himself, I've learnt, was a very fine cricketer that played for Barbados, but didn't play anything further. But they say he and his grandfather were terrific cricketers going back when Barbados had so many greats. I mean, if the world announced 50 of the greatest cricketers on the earth that there's ever been, unbelievably, 10 of those 50 would herald from this very small island at the eastern end of the Caribbean Sea.
Yeah, 21 miles long, 14 miles across at its widest point. It's tiny, isn't it? It really is amazing.
Yeah, if you think about it. And, we live in that beautiful county of Essex. And, basically from the size of Barbados, basically, give or take at the odd mile, but is the size of travelling from Chelmsford to Colchester.
Yeah.
Just a little bit longer. Maybe on the other side of the Chelmsford Ring Road or the bypass. It's an unbelievably small island, and to boast 10 of the greatest 50 cricketers have all come from Barbados is very impressive.
Before I let you go, you'll have missed this, but I suggest you watch on catch up. On Sunday evenings, there's been a lovely bit of Sunday evening television on Channel 4 called Pub Walks with Bill Bailey. And the first one was last week, and they were walking in Constable Country. He was with Sir Trevor McDonald. And they wandered past a very famous old school that had relocated up from Greenwich to the Suffolk-Essex borders. And they stopped there to watch a game of cricket being played. It was the Royal Hospital School. But I was so disappointed I didn't see a lesser-spotted Topley leaping about in the background.
No, not these days. No, that's right. I mean, Trevor McDonald loves his cricket. As you know, he's a very, very keen Lord Taverner.
Yep.
Bill Bailey, I don't know about his cricketing prowess, but pub walks go, well, it's such a beautiful part of the world. Grantham, Dedham, it really is magical. Yes, I hope I can find that on catch up.
Yeah, look for it. Channel 4.
Channel 4, lovely. Yeah, it's a fantastic part of the world, and I reckon I probably know most of those pubs that they've visited.
Yes. I'm struggling to think of the names of them, but it's a really nice series. It's really lovely Sunday night viewing, and particularly if you've just got a glass of something in your hand while you're watching it, and maybe a bag of crisps or something. But it's very, very good, and I suggest that anyone watching or listening to this, Pub Walks with Bill Bailey on Sundays on Channel 4. Well, we're doing. Now, just finally, just a very, very quick word. The IPL auction, the mega auction, is underway in Jeddah. And we've already seen some eye-watering sums going. Rishabh Pant, so far, the most expensive player. But here, everyone's talking about Jofra's. You mentioned Jofra earlier on, Jofra's involvement. It was earlier speculated that England weren't going to let him take part in this and wanted to have him playing for Sussex and a bit of red ball stuff and build him up to the Ashes, which is exactly a year away. But it doesn't look like it's going to be the case now. And I think Jofra's people have argued that there are new rules with the IPL, aren't there? If you miss this year or any year, you then forfeit being included for 2 years afterwards. So from a financial point of view, it's kind of like a bit of a no-brainer. But have you got any thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, gosh, I've got a lot of thoughts about the IPL, the auction, and indeed the Ashes that potentially will be happening, as you said, in a year. For the IPL, there is no science that you can sensibly apply to the selections of the auction. Honestly, I think it was Mitchell Marsh who went today for £300,000, £300,000 in the auction.
Yeah.
So this is a mega auction, and you get it the same salary for 3 years each year. But he's a good cricketer. A few people have reduced their paychecks, but Jofra Archer and I think it was Josh Hazlewood went for possibly the same amount, well over $1 million. And Rob Key probably was having his Sunday lunch today while that was going on, and while Jofra was being picked, and they all bidding against each other. Rajasthan Royals, Mumbai Indians, RCB, they were all
Punjab Kings.
each other. Yeah, they're all outbidding each other. And I would have thought, Rob Key was probably choking a little bit on his roast potato or a bit of beef or a bit of stuffing, a bit of sage and stuffing, because, he wants Jofra Archer to perform, and he's protected him, and he's offered him a lot of money over the last 2 or 3, 4 years. And it's an awkward one because, Jofra Archer's going to earn $1,200,000 every year for 3 years, and that's without his England salary. And he will be a very, very senior earner in those Central England contracts. So, look, it's an awkward one. You can sense both sides of the story, but as we move closer to the Ashes, look, we're not learning anything. We've seen India perform very well in the first Test match in Australia, potentially going to beat them and beat them heavily,
Yeah.
which is brilliant. But, wasn't long ago, weeks ago, that New Zealand travelled to India and pounded in India at
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And here we are, England are in New Zealand. But as regards the Ashes, in a year's time, you know what? Those older bowlers, another year older, maybe, just maybe, Australia might be there for the taking. But we've got to have a fit and an A team out. But more importantly, which really alarms me, we've got to have the preparation when we arrive there. And we haven't learned from the last Ashes. We haven't learned from the COVID Ashes when we went out there and we had one iffy practice game that wasn't particularly strong. And then we go straight into a test match and then we struggle. And that will happen always. And we don't learn because, from what I believe, the diary or the itinerary has been put out there, and England have got hardly any practice, and they will arrive 5 days before possibly the Test match I think it's in Perth.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Not Queensland or Brisbane, but it's in Perth. And I sense if we don't change that and stick to our guns and ensure that we have practice and we have a good lead into a Test match, the results will just be the same. What do they say that quote is? You keep moving the chairs on the Titanic, but you still sink.
Fail to prepare to fail.
Richard Hadley had that engraved and printed on his cricket coffin. And when I was 12th man for Middlesex once, I was for Nottinghamshire at Lord's, Richard Hadley showed, and I saw it in his coffin, in the lid of his coffin. And if what you just highlighted is good enough for Richard Hadley, it'll be good enough for me.
Absolutely right. Well, lots to look forward to. We'll have to save the county predictions for another time. I think it's going to be boiling up for another interesting county season with yet more pressure coming from the 100 and the ownership of the 100 and the proceeds, how that helps or hinders individual counties, maybe the lesser ones.
Isn't that exciting? We've got an opportunity to be excited on what the way cricket will look in the future. Possibly, it might even help some of the finances. How about that?
Well, we'll save that one for another chat because that is a whole new topic and one that I would want to have a deep dive into. But for the time being, I shall let you go back to your rum punch and catch the last glimpses of the spectacular sunsets you get out there. That was one thing you didn't. Barbados has so much to offer, doesn't it? On every front, the food, the drink, the beaches, and I think you'd struggle anywhere in the world to get better sunsets than you do on that west coast.
Yeah, you're right. Tonight was a terrific one. Seriously, it was a beautiful one. Listen, we've had a bit of rain of late in Barbados, which is probably a little bit longer in their rainy season that they would expect. But as you've highlighted, the weather here is terrific. I mean, it's 31, 32 during the day.
Perfect.
And seriously, it's only 27, 28 at night. It's beautiful.
Have you got air conditioning in your luxury?
You need it. Yeah, you badly need it. Yeah, definitely. It's on now. It's on now. But may I be the first to wish you, and of course it is getting closer ever, but can I wish you a very happy Christmas?
And to you, the embodiment of Christmas himself, Mr. Don Topley, talking to us from his secret hideaway deep in Barbados. Don, we'll catch up when you get back, and we'll have a glass together for the festive season.
Thank you, and a very good night.